Good. Welcome to our September meeting of NMSR, New Mexicans for Science and Reason. Glad everybody could make it. Our speaker today is Dr. Frank T Etscorn III. At one time, my colleague, we shared an office down here at Tech. And yeah, I still have your poster, Frank. We got this right here. If you're alive, think science, with all the people Frank wanted to recognize. And all righty. Well, we lost one person. Looks like Christine got knocked off. Oh well. So Frank is from the University of Kentucky. He really likes Kentucky, except when their basketball team is not winning. And then he gets a little on the ornery side. Anything else you want to tell us about your background, Frank?
That's pretty much it. I went to Western Kentucky, went to Battleground Academy for high school. I didn't graduate. I was kicked out of Western Kentucky twice. I've got quite a history with education, but luckily I found something I enjoyed, which was experimental psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist, by the way. I'm a rat-running experimental psychologist. And yeah, with that, let me get started. I mean, I'm nothing special. I'm from Southern Kentucky. I'm a damn hillbilly. This is something very close to my heart. We've got a lot of Americans dying. We got them dying and just like flies. I've known some of the folks that have died. It's a horrible drug. It's killing Americans by the pound. The drug is fentanyl, and we ain't seen nothing yet. Last year, 111,000 Americans died from fentanyl. Think about that. From tobacco-related products, 480,000 people. Why aren't we hand-wringing over tobacco? It just hasn't worked. It has not worked. All right, I'm going to jump around a bit, but I hope to pull this all together toward the end. I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things. A little bit of history first. I find that fascinating with tobacco. Around 6000 BC, we think the plant we call today tobacco maybe first appeared in South America. It was pretty potent. It was very potent, in fact. The folks down there still smoke nicotine, I can't even talk today. Okay, rustica. It's a very potent tobacco, and they smoke it for religious ceremonies, a death, for anything imaginable. It's not smoked for the fun of it. It is for religious purposes only. Now, Native Americans probably discovered every way that we currently use tobacco. They had snuff. They had a paste that they rubbed on their skin, which was a forerunner of the nicotine patch when you think about it. They also had the tobacco enema, which we don't think is all that popular these days. However, it was used again for religious purposes, much like trafficking. Remember when people were trafficking, have a headache, there are demons in the head, let's drill a hole in there and let that demon out. Okay, let's move right along. When Columbus men landed, they saw the Native Americans. It must have been really an experience. They talked about using leaves, rolling them into tubes, filling them up with brown leaves and packing it like it was a musket. And then they would smoke them. At Rodrigo de Jerez, that's, by the way, that's Southern Spanish, Southern Kentucky Spanish, so it's as bad as it gets, and I apologize. They noticed these folks smoking, and Mr. Jerez was taken by it. He said, that looks pretty cool, let me try that. The first cigarette was bummed, folks, in 1492 by Rodrigo de Jerez. Well, he liked it. He decided he ought to take that back to Spain, and he did. He had a few plants, and he had some of the tobacco with him, and they got on the boat to leave. The natives came out with all sorts of gifts, fruits, vegetables, all sorts of cool things, and a brownish dried leaf. As they pulled out, Columbus thanked everybody and threw the tobacco overboard. He didn't like it.
Good man.
Good man, good man. Now I have a cheat sheet here because I'm old as dirt. So I need all the help I can get. I'm standing on 78, folks. Let's go through some things. Back then, when Rodrigo got to Spain, he walked around town smoking. Guess what they thought was happening? He thought, the Spanish thought he was possessed by the devil. He was drinking tobacco. That's what they called it back then. He was drinking tobacco. And guess what happened? The Inquisition clapped him in jail for 7 years. And when Rodrigo gets out of jail, guess what's happening? People are smoking. People are smoking. He got burned, to say the least. George Washington at Valley Forge says, if you can't send money, send tobacco. Napoleon tried a cigar once, coughed violently, and went back to his 20 pounds of snuff a month. I always ask my students, where in the hell did he put all that snuff? Maybe that's why he had hemorrhoids. General Pershing in World War I says, if you can't send tobacco, send bullets. Freud, oh, Lord have mercy. Sigmund Freud went to the doctor one day. He says, I've got a little sore here in the back of my jaw. Doctor said, Ziggy, you ought to quit all those cigars. Well, he was only smoking 20 a day. Did he stop? No. 33 operations later to totally remove his jaw, Freud died. John Wayne had a lung removed. And what was he doing as soon as he recovered? He started smoking again. Burger's disease. It's not spelled like hamburger, although I used to say that, B-U-E-R, Burger's disease. And what happens is nicotine closes your peripheral, or it constricts your peripheral vasculature. In other words, if you're a smoker, your fingertips and your toes and your ears and your nose might be a little cooler than a non-smoker. Burger's disease is that issue magnified a lot. You go to the doctor. Doctor, I've got a brown toe. Wow. If we don't do something, it might go into gangrene. Are you a smoker? Yes, I am. You may have Burger's disease. So we cut a toe off. Do you quit smoking? No. We cut a whole lot of your stuff off. And at Vanderbilt University, in the surgical recovery room, there was a man in a bed with no fingers, his legs cut off to his hips. And he asked the doctor, could you please cut a flap in here where I can stick my cigarette in and smoke it? I always ask my kids, how much of your shit could I cut off before you quit smoking? That's a heck of a question. It really, really is. Let's go on before I get too crazy on this stuff. A draft deferment in World War II if you were a tobacco producer. It was that important. My buddy in Vietnam said, all I wanted to carry with me was a little bit of food, bullets, and cigarettes. Cigarettes increase your energy and they reduce hunger. Very simple. 1950, we had the safer cigarette. It was called Kent's. Some of us old timers remember. That was the safest cigarette ever made. It stayed on the market about 5 or 6 years. What was the famous micronite filter? Asbestos. Yes, amazing, isn't it? Well, then we came out with the safer cigarettes, the low delivery cigarettes that researchers thought people would not use them because it wouldn't maintain the addiction without going into withdrawals. But what did people do with the low delivery cigarettes? They smoked them down to a shorter butt length. They took deeper inhalations. What did they do? They compensated. They had to have their nicotine before they went into withdrawals. Funny stuff. It works. Vaping, my God, I won't even go into that. That is a whole nother nightmare, and it's popcorn lung. It's just one heck of a mess. I'm going to be speaking at a couple of high schools about that. All righty. My dad played basketball for University of Kentucky under Adolph Rupp. He never smoked a day in his life. One day, sitting across the dinner table, my mother had smoked all her life. She grew up raising tobacco in Southern Kentucky. He reached across the table, grabbed a cigarette, and pretty soon he was a 2-pack-a-day smoker, and that's what killed him. My wife, oh, Lord have mercy. She can hear me back there, so I may get something thrown at me. Sherry would go empty the trash, go out the backyard, get back a few minutes. Then she went out to walk the dog. And I thought, we never owned the dog. She was going out and smoking is what she was doing. And if you really want to see some weirdness, go to the Canadian Discovery Channel and look at this thing that they did on me, on Sherry and myself. And it's the damnedest. My lab looks like a dungeon. And but anyhow, that's the Canadian, whatever. All right. Sherry would stop her Jane Fonda workout tape to go smoke. And I finally told her after the patch came out, I said, girl, if you don't quit smoking, it's going to be the duct tape patch for you. And I had plenty of duct tape. Southerners know about duct tape. My mother, she was raised growing tobacco as well. She had smoked all her life. And one day she just said, I think I've had enough, and threw them away. No withdrawals, no cravings. And I wish I knew more about her. That was pretty special stuff. Me, well, I never smoked because it made me sick. And I think some of that started when I was a kid in a tobacco warehouse in Southern Kentucky. And an old timer gave me a plug of sweet tobacco. Me being omnivorous, I ate it. I thought I was going to throw my shoes up. It was at that point that I learned that nicotine is a very powerful stimulant of the vomiting center of the medulla in the brain. I learned that very well. That plug of tobacco was no fun. Now I'm going to change gears. I'm going to do this several times, but again, I hope to pull this all together here toward the end. The Black Plague. They finally figured out the rats were carrying the fleas were the vector, so they needed to kill some rats. Well, what did they do? They used red squill at first, very toxic. They used a number of toxins, but what they found was very interesting. A wild rat would go up to this toxin, look at it, and maybe retire for a week before it came close to it again. Maybe another trial, it comes up and smells it. And maybe a few more trials, it goes up and tastes it. If it doesn't make it sick, it will probably eat it, okay? Now, what they found was that rats were showing what we now call bait shyness. They would take a bait, it would be a non-lethal dose, and they would survive, and they would avoid that flavor for the rest of their lives. Every time they avoided it, it was reinforced, the aversion, okay? Now, let's go a little further. We now, as I said, we call that bait shyness, but let me give you another little example. My wife, when she was a child, was in the back seat of a station wagon. It was pre-air conditioning in Southern Kentucky, and her dad smoked a cigar. He was a country doctor. We don't know whether it was car sickness or from the cigar, but she was drinking root beer at the time, and she got sick as a dog. She now has a flavor aversion. If I want to control this little tiny woman, I'm 6'7", she's 5. I just say root beer, and she goes into a mild seizure. It's ugly, but it works. Now, one of the problems with this kind of conditioning is that Pavlov said the meat powder has to follow the bell by about a half a second or maybe a little more. Well, John Garcia defied every bit of that with his flavor aversion. John Garcia, and I should stand up when I say it, he's one of my real life heroes. Look him up. Hundreds of publications. Anyhow, Garcia asked the question, or was told to find this question, play with this question. If we have an army tank and we expose it to an X-ray overdose, what would happen to the soldiers inside that tank? So what he did, he simulated the tank, he put rats in the tank, exposed it to X-ray, overdose of X-ray, and then he saw something really, really cool. When he put the rats back in their home cage, the rats drank water. But when he put them in the exposure device, they wouldn't drink the water. John Garcia did something cool. He liked to call it the garden hose effect. He went to the device, got the plastic drinking tube that was in the X-ray exposure device and tasted of it. Tasted like a plastic garden hose. So that was the taste cue that the rats were using to hook up with the illness from the X-ray. The only problem is the delay. Going back to that half a second with Pavlov, this defied everything. Garcia tried to publish. We can't publish this crap. It doesn't work. There's no such thing as a cue to consequence separated by 6 hours. Think about that. You go to Wendy's, you have your burger doodle with chili, of course. You get home, you get sick. Wait a minute. Would I avert to my beloved Burger King? No, because I've had too many previous experiences with it. That's one of the problems with flavor aversion. One of the reasons that we can't, I'd love to get an alcoholic. What's your favorite drink? Gin. All right, here's a shot of gin. Now I'm going to hit you with Ipecac. Does it work? Oh, I can avert them to gin. But what is he going to do? Vodka's sounding pretty good to me right now. It's called they generalize. And so it's really, really hard to do. Kind of make them sick on everything? Oh, no, that wouldn't be too good. We give them antibiotics. Okay. So we talked a little about Pavlov. Now we got John Garcia and his flavor aversion stuff. Changing drugs again. As an undergraduate, I was doing flavor aversion. I used every drug imaginable I could get my hands on. I wanted to see what would produce these aversions. Turned out I found some drugs that would not produce it. One of them was strychnine, because it produces minor seizures that blows the memory out of consolidation. It screws up the short-term consolidation to long-term, and the rats don't remember it. So that didn't work. All right, I worked with everything from mice, goldfish, to monkeys. And humans. Humans, yeah, I played with humans. They're hard to work with. I prefer rats. They don't lie. I got nicotine. I was doing these aversions using all these different drugs. I used phencyclidine, which is PCP. I used morphine. I used cyclophosphamide, which are anti-cancer drug. I used a bunch of those kinds of things. So what I did was make an animal slightly nauseous. I was looking for the most potent stimulant the vomiting center known, and it turned out to be nicotine. I kind of knew that from my experience with a plug of tobacco as a child, but nevertheless, I got a big bottle of nicotine, which was really, really stupid. I was doing demos in my class. I did it one time. I never did it again. I got a big fat keeper rat. I got a tuberculin syringe. I threw the barrel away. I had nothing but the needle. I dipped it into a bottle of nicotine base. There was a drop on the end. I touched it to the lip. There was nothing on the needle that you could see. I stuck it into the rat. The rat had, I think it was 1 minute and 45 seconds to live. First, you can see the heart rate go up. Then it starts bouncing. Then you could hear actually snapping and cracking of the animal's bones. The seizures are that bad. People have died from nicotine overdoses. I had that on film. And for years, the student would come by and say, Frank, I need to see that film. I'm trying to quit smoking. I want to see that rat. And for some, I hope it worked. Okay, so, Lord have mercy. I was doing those demos. I ordered a big bottle, and I ordered a jug of nicotine, which is one of the stupidest things I ever did in my life. And I was going through the lab one day, and I had a cable on the floor, and I have size 15D shoes. And I tripped over that cable, and I poured nicotine down my arm. I only threw up for 8 hours. I lost 15 pounds. I made me a file folder pillow in my office because I couldn't ride my bicycle home. I was screwed up like a bicycle. I was sick as a dog. I mean, and I've seen projectile vomiting in people outside the Capitol in Socorro. It's a very coherent stream of vomitus. But mine was pure nausea. I mean, there was nothing but nausea. Let me go on. I knew as I was laying there in my office, I said, man, this would be a great way to get nicotine in somebody without smoking, dipping, or chewing. Yeah, I was sick. I knew about green tobacco sickness. Probably had never heard of that. That's when if you're a non-smoker and you're working cutting tobacco in the South, it's August, it's hotter than hell, it's humid, and you're walking through those plants. And if you're a non-smoker, you're going to get sick because you absorb nicotine through your skin. Guess what else is cool? If you're a smoker, you didn't smoke as much because you were getting it through your skin. Isn't that cool? That's science. That's observation. All right. So I knew about early IV work that suggested people, if you gave them IV nicotine in very low doses, diluted, of course, they started preferred over smoking a cigarette, which is pretty cool. So a lot of that early stuff was flawed, but it still pointed in the correct direction. I knew how addictive nicotine was. My gosh, it's so addictive. It's not even funny. We used to say if a youngster smoked 3 cigarettes, we'd have them for life. You've got to get by the initial nausea. That's what I never could figure out. I want to use a drug that makes me sick every time I smoke it until I get tolerant. And that's what it's all about, tolerance. Nicotine, by the way, let me pull over again. Nicotine shows a phenomenon called tachyphylaxis. It's the most rapid form of tolerance that we know of. It comes on really, really fast. Let's get some dogs. We inject them with a dose of nicotine and they throw up. Okay, that's expected. Dogs, dogs love to throw up. Cats too. But when you make them throw up with that low dose of nicotine, you come back 2 weeks later and give them the same dose, and their respiration doesn't even change. That's rapid tolerance, gang. And if we didn't have rapid tolerance, people would get sick every time they smoked a cigarette. We're moving right along. All right. I needed a human. I needed a human to play with. Sherry, do you mind if I put nicotine on your neck? No, hell no. Please, no, I'll divorce you again. And no, she's never divorced me. So I called my brother. He was a smoker. I flew him out from Kentucky and I laid him up on the dinner table. This is all documented. And I put a drop of nicotine on his neck and he said, wow, it feels like I just smoked. I jumped through the ceiling. I said, we may have something here. I'm giving you nicotine without you having to smoke it, without you having the tar, without having all the byproducts of combustion, the carbon monoxide, the benzene, the propane, all this crap. John did it. He was a fool. Well, I got me some rats. Rat psychologists got to have rats. I can't work with humans anymore. By the way, if I did what to myself today, I get put in jail. It's illegal to experiment on yourself. True. Isn't that cool? I've been doing it though. Hell with them. All right. So we got rats. We pulled up their hair on the back and put the nicotine on their neck with a micro pipette. Well, we found out that the hair was wicking up the nicotine, exposing it to light and air, which broke the nicotine down. So then we came up with a hell of a clever idea. Let's shave a rat. So we got an electric razor and shaved back there a little spot on the rat. And we learned one thing, that rats don't like high frequency little motors at their back. And they chewed on us for a while, and we quit that project. The next thing I tried, I went to Safeway, and I knew the lady at the checkout counter, and I went up to her and I said, I'd like a case of Nair. And she said, what in the hell are you up to now? I got my case of Nair, and we Naired rats. No, I didn't hold them by the tail and dip them into a vat of Nair. We Naired a little place on the back of their necks where we could put the nicotine. Well, that Nair made the nicotine incredibly toxic. Seizures, the whole thing. Ladies, guys too, if you're using Nair on your legs, don't put your nicotine patch down there. Okay. All right, so we did that. That didn't work. So then after we shaved the rats, we got aquarium tubing, 1/4-inch tubing, made a little thin section and crazy glued it to their neck where we'd have a little reservoir where we knew where how big a surface area we were dealing with. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work. Well, we knew we had something. We knew we had something. So we did a whole lot of experiments. We looked at, if we put the nicotine on toward the tail, how long did we see before we saw an increase in heart rate? We were doing all those kinds of things. We were looking at blood levels. We were trying to achieve what you get from a smoked cigarette, which is 28 microliters per liter, microliter of blood. 28 microliters per liter of blood. So, you know, we're talking about very small amounts. All right. The climate was great for something to stop smoking. Again, 480,000 people a year. It doesn't change very much. It's so lethal. Now we've got these vapes going. Kids are going to get so addicted. I thought that there was an upper limit of nicotine that a person could tolerate. Apparently there isn't. It's just like the opioids, like carfentanil, fentanyl, all of these crazy opioids. We're up in the tolerance level to astronomical levels. All right. We did all these studies. We knew we had something. So I wrote a patent. I had no idea from a monkey how to write a patent. I had a little help from Deborah Peacock. In fact, our first patent was rejected. Nicotine's too toxic. Of course it is. I damn near killed myself several times. I didn't tell you. I replicated the original spill. I put nicotine on my arm, got sick, threw up. Then one day, I had my students in the lab, and gang, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to try to mimic the dosimetry of a smoked cigarette, meaning I want to get the nicotine in as fast as I get a smoked bolus of nicotine from smoke. If I inject here, it takes 14 seconds to get to the brain right there. If I smoke it, it takes about 8 seconds. The faster I get a reward, the more reinforcing it is, okay? Now, when we wrote this patent, again, the drug was so toxic, they just didn't want to do it. So we went back, rewrote this thing. Oh, I've got a low memory. We're good. I'm plugged in. And I'm down to 10%. Let me do an adjustment here, folks. And so we rewrote the patent, and it was accepted. Well, strangely enough, about the time it was accepted by the patent office, man, all these other drug companies kept coming in. One was Nicotinell. They had a patch out. They had it because there was an error in my and Tech's patent that was printed by the patent office. One company got their patent based upon that error. They lasted about a year. This stuff went on and on and on. I did 16 hours of depositions at one time, 2 days straight. The only thing was I knew more than they did about what I did. But I've never seen as many lawyers. This was a big deal, gang. There must have been 12, 15 lawyers in there. And they were all putting their business cards out. And finally, the team from Ciba Geigy, who we were with, and they're Novartis now, Ciba Geigy put their card out, and there was a collective, oh my God, it's Ciba Geigy. that was a good sign for me. Anyhow, so we finally got that patent accepted. UCLA claimed interference. Oh man, what a nightmare. If you want to read the whole story, go to the Chronicle of Higher Education called the Nicotine Patch Wars. It was big money. My gosh, it was big money. Ciba was in bed with UCLA. They were in bed with us as well, which was kind of an interesting thing. Well, we know how Novartis, excuse me, I'm all confused here. We know how the other people got wind of our work. I was at Tech. I had been talking this to everybody that I could. And our admissions director came over and said, Frank, could you do a quick talk to an elder hostel group? Sure. What do you want to talk about? Value patch, nicotine, stuff like that, stuff you might know about. So I did. After the talk, an old gentleman came up and said, my son works with nicotine. He will be delighted to hear about this. We never could prove it though, so c'est la vie. That's that. Tech did all right. Let's see, what else can I say? Bottom line was Tech won discovery, UCLA won reduced to practice. And as I said, we know how they found out. It was really, really crazy. The depositions, I don't know how many depositions I did. I got to where I was pretty good at depositions. And yeah, you don't have any questions? I've been yapping my head off. No questions?
Super,
Okay.
super interesting. Super interesting. Thank you. Fascinating and terrifying.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Would I do it again? Yeah, I'd probably do it again. I'm crazy enough to try that stuff. When I was working with flavor aversion, fellow up at Los Alamos said, would you like a 600,000 volt transformer? I said, oh yeah, I found something to do with it. So I tried flavor aversion. You know, we were worried about people living under these big 764 kV power lines. So I figured, why not expose them to that? Well, we made this beautiful device. I mean, it was gorgeous. And we exposed rats and exposed rats. And then the Tech safety officer came in to take a look at it. He said, this is the most dangerous thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And so we built another device. I won't tell you he was a lightning researcher that helped build us that device, the first one. The second one was a beautiful plexiglass device, about 8 feet in diameter. It would hold 8 rats at once. And we would power up our power supply and expose them. We weren't controlling for ozone. I figured if we ever got an aversion, I'd give them saccharin for 10 minutes, take it away, wait 30 minutes, put them in the device and expose them to the high frequency stuff, the ultra high, the high voltage. And we got nothing. We got nothing. We kept trying. Well, we were using AC current, and my student at the time said, Frank, you know, we're not having any luck. Why don't we switch this thing over to DC? Well, we did. And so help me, the most beautiful lightning bolt shot from the device and hit the stainless steel sink. We both pissed ourselves and decided we ought to go to the Capitol Bar and discuss this further. That's the truth. That is the truth. I was really interested in this flavor aversion because NASA was having a lot of problems with space sickness. Can you imagine that? You're in the space shuttle, you're in orbit, and somebody throws up in 0G. Harry, it's coming this way. No, that's no good. So what do? You give them Thorazine and knock them out so they can't do any of their tasks. That was a real big problem, space sickness, and us flavor versions help there. Another one, cancer patients. We got a cancer patient receiving heavy-duty chemotherapy. I worked with this stuff. It's a nitrogen mustard derivative that mimics an X-ray overdose. That's an anti-cancer drug, gang. That's an anti-cancer drug. I forget where I was going with that. Anyhow, I gave that to rats. That was the stuff we used. And what we found out, that if you got a cancer patient, don't give them a new food while they're on chemo. Why? They'll become averted to it. Yeah, it happened all the time till we figured it out. That was science. That was science. Yeah, that's flavor aversion. I try to avert my family. It's a flavor aversion world for me. Give them a new cue, let's do it. College students, oh man, they are great examples. I'll never drink tequila again. I'll never drink rum again. Oh, yes, indeed. It's a funny world, gang. Addictions fascinate me. They absolutely fascinate me. I can't imagine somebody getting addicted to Gilligan's Island. As I told students, if they'd strangled Gilligan the first 2 days of being on the island, they would have been off in a week. Yeah. You folks have any questions? I'd wrap my head off for you. Yes, sir.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
How did you get that high voltage in DC?
Oh, some sort of switch it was on it. Sterling Colgate gave it to me, and I didn't know anything about it. I need to plug it in.
Okay, so it was a black box source.
Yes, sir, it was.
All right.
He also gave us a PDP-11 for $5. Yeah, for $5. Yeah.
It's an interesting plaything.
Yeah. Anybody else? Vic, how about you? Oh, a student of mine.
Hey, thank you for your information. It's interesting after the classes I took with you just to learn a little bit more about. I knew some of it, but how long did it take Sherry to quit the habit?
Well, when I threatened her with a duct tape, she got with the program real quick. Yeah, that's the truth. And I was, when the patch first came out, I did put some on her, and I paraded her up and down the airport. She was a billboard as far as I was concerned. Yeah, the two things I hope I help some people, I really do. But the main thing, I know I got scholarships for tech students, and that really gives me a lot of pleasure. You just don't know. You just don't know.
Well, it's really helped some of our friends. I mean, Leilani's been off of nicotine for years now, and I'm so thankful for that.
I threatened her too with the duct tape patch. Yeah, it works. Any others? Anything else, DT?
So would you recommend if somebody wanted to quit smoking, would you recommend them to just try it cold turkey first? That's what I did. Except it took about 20 years, but I finally did it back in 2009, doing fine. But I never went for the patch.
Well, I would have used duct tape on you, except for your beard. That would hurt. What was your question?
Would you recommend somebody try cold turkey before the patch, or would you just start them off, say, well, why not use it? It's there and it's effective.
A famous researcher I worked with at Vanderbilt said, if the first thing doesn't work, try something else and just keep trying. And that's all I can say. The patch, the gum, pills, duct tape, whatever it takes. And the worst thing is somebody trying to quit smoking and a friend blows smoke in their face. And I've seen that. And what's really funny is that some people only smoke when they're on a keyboard. Yeah, typing on a keyboard is when they smoke. You got that cigarette and the keyboard's full of ashes. Some people only smoke when they're in a bar. One beer here, cigarette here. They're going down here, they're going up with a cigarette. Nicotine's biphasic. It first stimulates and then it depresses. That's why if I overdose you, you'll go into seizures first, then we'll paralyze the diaphragm and you'll wake up dead. And I hate that.
Yeah.
Any other folks? Oh, a cat lover. We have two.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
One more question, Frank. I have my
Yeah.
brother-in-law chews nicotine, the nicotine gum, and he's been doing it for 15 years. I mean, my sister gets so frustrated, but she said, this is a battle I just choose not to deal with.
Well, he's not getting tar, which causes cancer, and he's not getting carbon monoxide, which is your cardiac damage. Pure and simple. If that's the best he can do, yeah, and that's tough. There are a lot of people. We had an old timer in Socorro that got his prescription for the gum. He thought he was supposed to chew it all in one day. If he had been a 2-pack of smoker, it probably killed him. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, I got tales like you just can't believe. I had people come up to me. There was a lady in Texas who owned a chain of real estate offices. If you'll send me a box of those patches, I'll send you a blank check. I said, ma'am, I had to buy my wife's patches. The craziest stories, people dragging an oxygen tank wanting patches. Again, I mean, Berger's disease. How much of you can I cut off before you say, I think I'll quit? It's just amazing. If you're a pack-a-day smoker, you take 73,000 puffs a year. That is called reinforcement density. If you're a rat and I'm training you, the more reinforcements I give you, the stronger that behavior is going to be. And that's what tobacco does.
I went into the Presbyterian Hospital clinic the other day. In fact, I saw Dave there. I just got COVID and I want to give it to my significant other, which is why I have a mask, but I'm much better. It doesn't seem to be as bad a strain. But anyway, as I'm walking up to that building D there in Socorro, this skinny old guy, like older than me, 70 something, longish hair. He's smoking a cigarette, like walking up to the clinic, and he throws it down just before he walks in the clinic. I'm like unrepentant, God.
I've seen people, and I watch this kind of stuff. I'm a psychologist. I watch stuff. I've seen people come out of a building, get a fresh cigarette, light it, take 2 puffs and snuff it out, and they have to go back in. They took their break, smoking a cigarette. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. How can we get people to stop? I don't know. 480,000 people dying every damn year. My goodness gracious, we should be hand-wringing.
Well, what are the statistics? I mean, does a smaller percentage of the population smoke that would have been smoking in the 60s or 70s? Isn't that the case or not?
I think there are a few people smoking cigarettes, but I think we've got a problem with this vaping stuff. Like I said, I'm going to speak to two up in Farmington and then down at the Silver City. I'm going to see the whole state, but they're really concerned about their kids vaping. And I'll go and I'll tell them the truth. I mean, I don't lie to kids, LSD, it won't make an arm mutate out of your head. I don't go with scare tactics. We tried that with glue sniffing years ago in Phoenix. They were having such a problem. They pressured Tester, which was the most preferred brand of glue. And Tester came out with The Scent of Danger, a movie about how dangerous it was to sniff glue. What happened? The sales of Tester glue skyrocketed. Humans, folks, that's why I work with rats. I don't know. We're a funny species.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, people that are trying to cut down on smoking and get down to 2 or 3 cigarettes a day, it's still hard for them to quit. And what I'm thinking is, at that level, you're just feeding the addiction, and you're really feeling the symptoms. And I didn't really have relief until I had just quit for a couple months. Yeah. And I didn't have those urges. And so I tell people trying to quit, Well, if you don't want the urge, it's a lot more efficient just to quit all the way, than to try to, you know, have like 1 or 2 cigarettes. Some people can have like 1 cigarette. They can go out and once a month and have their cigarette, and I'm not one of those people.
My hillbilly grandmother would smoke 1 cigarette and 1 shot of whiskey a month. I don't know how she did that, but she did. She did.
More power to him. But yeah, I tell people that, you know, if you're down to 1 cigarette, you're actually making it worse. And why not just quit all the way and go through a couple days of discomfort, but you come out a lot better.
But see, with some people, that discomfort is you say good morning, they tell you to go straight to hell. Some people get vicious, and I know a few that did that. Yeah, man, it's really tough. Cold turkey, yeah, it'll work for a lot of people. I can't promise anything that works perfect. I know this: if I give a person a patch to quit, and the nurse at the clinic or hospital calls that person once a week and says, "How are you doing?" it increases their success rate. Just that gentle nudge. Just that gentle nudge.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, we don't know what all the gentle nudges are, but keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. The gum, yeah. All you're trying to do is avoid withdrawals. That's all you're trying to do. Avoid those withdrawals. And we don't know why people don't wake up in the middle of the night in withdrawals. It's because we have different neurotransmitters working throughout the night as opposed to the day. But it would be fascinating. I know my roommate in college, the one I got kicked out the first time, the first thing he did in the morning, laying in the bed, he light up a cigarette. That's the first thing he did. Yeah. And I couldn't handle it. Any other questions? Well, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I hope you folks did. I hope you're not smoking. If you do, get gum, patch, or pills, or duct tape.
Neither.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening.
All right.
You folks take care.
As always.
My
Thanks.
cat
It's
says
been
hi.
interesting.
Thanks, Dave.
All righty. Thanks for
Take care, DT.
joining in, everybody.
Thanks for inviting me.
To Sherry and to the family.
Say hello to Pammy.
Oh, and I think
Yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody at 49ers this year.
Are you coming to my party?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm
Excellent.
bringing Leilani and Bill.
You guys,
Did you get a reservation?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. We got a big party.
but you're going to miss the annular eclipse. We're going to Roswell for the annular eclipse. So,
Well, we got it right here. We're
No,
going to have a real good one right here.
but it'll be totality in Albuquerque or Roswell. So we're going to go there. Yeah. So we're going to miss
well,
this
also,
49ers. So I have an excuse not to climb the M this year. I'm so happy. So,
Good golf cart. All right, folks.
What you
Thank
got
y'all
there,
for having
Dave?
me.
what were you
Oh,
going
I
to say?
remember that, Dave.
it's yeah, a star globe. So next time you're down here, maybe I should give this to you to give to the astronomy club.
Oh,
I'm
great.
not able to use it too much,
But they would enjoy that. I've got a telescope to give them too.
So yeah, let's get together when you're here and I'll fix you up.
We'll do it. You say hello to Pam for me.
I will.
Yeah. For me too,
All right.
Dave.
You folks take care.
Thanks.
Go have a
All right,
cigarette.
thanks for
Oh,
coming,
beer.
everybody.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.
Bye-bye.
Live long
Bye.
and prosper.